Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside sunny and warm Louisville, Kentucky. And in Maryland, my longtime friend, esteemed colleague, wonderful coach, John Webster. How you doing, John?
Gary Graves, you're too kind, man. Way too kind, man. But I'm doing great. Another great week in sports. I can't wait to sit and talk to you about it and have a good time with it. But before we go too far in it, let's say hey to the man who makes it happen. John Pitt, what's going on?
Little depressed, man. There's only one more NFL game left. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, yeah, that one does kind of suck. But then again, there's the Pro Bowl games on Sunday, so you can watch flag football and sprints and all that kind of stuff. Isn't that just fun?
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I got paint to watch dry.
You guys are being very mean. The NFL has worked very hard to come up with these alternative opportunities for everyone to enjoy.
Well, it's like this. The Pro Bowl, for all the talk, and it's always been that way. For all the talk about who's a Pro Bowler, yada yada yada, we get to the Pro Bowl and nobody cares. The players don't care. The viewers don't care. I don't know who really cares other than the NFL. And every year I start to wonder, why do they even have a game like this? Why don't they just say, why don't they just name a team and like they do all pro and just leave it at that? That's just my take on it, because the game, nobody cares about the game in between the game.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
I
I
mean,
know I
it's
won't. I'm not much of an all-star game person anyway. I don't watch the NHL All-Star game. I don't watch the NBA All-Star game. I don't watch the NFL All-Star game or the Pro Bowl, whatever they call it. I will watch the baseball All-Star game, but soccer All-Star game, I don't watch that either. I'm not much for All-Star games.
yeah. Well, that's too bad about you not being an all-star guy, because potentially next year you could have maybe three Baltimore Oriole pitchers on the all-star team, especially after that trade. What do you think about that before we get into the real national pastime?
Well, I think Burns is a good move. He is not he's not left-handed. Everybody knows I want a left-hander. So John Means will be that left-hander. But if Burns does what he's supposed to, he's a former Cy Young Award winner. He's going to be the ace. And what the Orioles do not have is an ace. If you put him as the ace, then you got Bradis, Rodriguez, and Means. It falls right into order. Bradis will be the two, Rodriguez will be three, or well, two, three, four. I don't know which way you want to go with a Means for or whatever, but it falls right into place. It really does. The everyday players, I mean, you're still looking at what's my man and Gunnar Henderson. You're still looking at him. You're still looking at the catcher. You caught me off guard here. I can't even think of my Oriole names right now, Gary. Second base, first base. You got I can't think of the guy's name. I can't think of anybody's name right now, Gary.
Well, I'll
He
tell you what,
he.
John. I'll let you off the hook while you look that up on the computer. Let's talk about what everybody in the area is probably talking about right now. And the Washington Commanders have hired Dan Quinn as their head coach.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to say this. My first reaction was, "Huh? Really?" I mean, I didn't expect them to hire Bill Belichick under any circumstance. Um, the Detroit Lions assistant that they were going after and literally going after, I mean, heading to Detroit, I guess, apparently to try to talk to him, that got scuttled, in midair. But he was an offensive guy that I had some enthusiasm for, some optimism for. And then they hired Dan Quinn, who I guess on the surface is a decent coach. I mean, I think he had a winning record in Atlanta, took him to a Super Bowl, of course, blew one of the biggest Super Bowl leads ever. But
The
then goes
biggest.
to Dallas, builds a strong defense until they ran up against Green Bay in the playoffs. So my feeling is I'm just not enthusiastic about it. And it has nothing to do with Dan Quinn. It's the fact that the team went after another defensive coach when they really need an offensive infusion. And I don't know if that excites anybody in Washington right now, because I don't see the offense improving, even if I don't know what he does with Eric Bieniemy or who he hires as offensive coordinator. I don't know how that goes. And the uncertainty over that, I'm sure, is permeating the Washington area. And people are saying, what is this team doing? I mean, it sounds like such a Washington Commanders thing to do.
Well, I probably have what I would call an elongated response, Gary. So forgive me as I start. First, I'm not disappointed with the hire of Dan Quinn. I kind of like it, to be honest with you. Through this whole process, I've said, and I said it to Dante many times, I did not want a coordinator. I didn't want a hotshot coordinator. My belief is the Washington franchise needs to be steadied and moving in the right direction. I think it's a gamble to go with a coordinator who's never been a head coach. I don't think the franchise has that type of time to take John Webster, who's been setting records as a coordinator, but then becomes a head coach and he stinks. Now we're resetting the bar again. I think with Dan Quinn, no, he's not fancy. No, he's not exciting, but he is steady. And I will disagree with others. I don't see him as Ron Rivera. I think Dan Quinn has been a solid coach. I think in Atlanta, he lost his coordinator, Kyle Shanahan. And we see what Shanahan's doing. That San Francisco's in the Super Bowl again. He had some injuries. He also had some players leave via free agency. I just think this is really going to be good. He went to Dallas. He had, in the last 3 years, a top 5 defense. Washington's defense is going to become better. You got a draft pick, Emmanuel Forbes. He couldn't even get off the bench by the end of the season. And I could guarantee you he was confused. He was a confused young man. And I think Dan Quinn's going to find a way to use him and make him a very good player in his secondary. Gary, you mentioned the offense. Yes, you need a steadying force with the offense. You need a steadying hand. I think what they're going to do is make a move for Clint Kubiak. That's what I've been hearing. Clint Kubiak is Gary Kubiak's son. Gary Kubiak, who coached at Denver, coached the Houston Texans, coached with the Baltimore Ravens as well, and a very, very good coach. And his son is a very good coach. I think there's a natural tie there because Adam Peters was in where? San Francisco. I think he's going to pluck him off the Shanahan tree, bring him here, and we'll go from there. I think another thing that Quinn is going to have to do, good coordinator, but you're going to need to find a strong quarterback coach. You're going to need to find someone that can work with the quarterback. Whether you're going to get a quarterback with your second pick or you're working with Sam Howell, I don't know. I'll just put it all out there. I don't think Eric Bieniemy will stay. That's my personal opinion. I think Eric Bieniemy will end up with some other organization. But Gary, I just believe this is a solid pick. It's not a fancy pick. It's not an exciting pick, but it's a pick to help them get in the right direction. And oh, by the way, John Pitt, just so you know, the defensive coordinator who is going to be the new defensive coordinator for the Cowboys is not going to have that job now. He's coming to Washington to be the defensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. I think his name is Witt. So I just think this is definitely going to be a different team on defense. They're going to be hitting you, running all over the field, and just playing hard football, fast-paced football. That's how Quinn plays on both sides of the ball. I think they're going to reestablish a running game. They didn't have a good running game, in my opinion. Gary, and you and I have talked 20, 25 times. Put that ball on Robinson's stomach. Let him run. I think he's going to make better use of him. Quarterback.
I hope so, because I hate to see them waste his talent and Chris Rodriguez.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be different. I think you're going to make better use of your wide receivers because it's going to be a different way of calling plays. I think since they're going to be more of a run-oriented team, you got a lot of front line already. You need to get some more offensive linemen, but you got some that are good at run blocking now. But you're going to need to get some more. You're going to have to figure out this defensive line, John Allen, Deron Payne. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do with them. Jamin Davis is another one who can chase the ball and is good. Again, I will say this. I am in the minority. I like the hire of Dan Quinn. And for some of you all that know me very, very well, it has nothing to do with the fact that Dan Quinn played at Salisbury University. And I am from where? Guess where? Salisbury. Has nothing to do with that. It's a beautiful thing, but that's not the basis of my reason.
Nothing at all to do with that, John. We understand.
Nothing at all, but it is a beautiful situation. It is beautiful, but it has nothing. That's not my main reasoning. That's not any of my reason, to be honest with you. But I feel this is going to be. I'm going to tell you something, Gary. I'm going to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
In 1981, when you first heard the name Joe Gibbs, did you jump out of your chair?
No, but I was encouraged, honestly. I mean, I really was, because of where he came from and what he did there when Joe Jackson Gibbs came from the San Diego Chargers. I was really encouraged. I was very curious because that previous season, let's see what they were 6-10 that season.
Yep.
And the offense was just kind of blah. And I mean, they look like a team that if they hadn't changed their coach, they were probably looking to win fewer games each season. And I'm going to say, like I said, I was encouraged because I figured, well, that has to help. Just look at what they did with what he did with Eric Coryell, and of course, he comes in and the rest is history. I don't want you to think, John, that I dislike the hire. I'm just not thrilled with it. And it really doesn't have to do with Dan Quinn. I think it doesn't have to do with Dan Quinn per se. It has to do with maybe the whole retread nature of the NFL and to an extent the NBA. Yes, Doc Rivers, I'm looking at you. In terms of hiring coaches, yes, I think you go with a name that's out there and is somewhat proven. My biggest problem, and I said this before, is that it's another string. It's another defensive team, another defensive coach coming to a team that needs an infusion on offense. And the question that I've seen kind of bandied about in terms of the draft is that, okay, they've got the number 2 pick in the draft, correct? And they've got a ton of draft picks. There's a quarterback out there. There are several quarterbacks out there. And I mean, I think that there's one for the taking. Having said that, I like Sam Howell. I still think he has more upside than anything else. I think his best days are ahead of him. I liked the progression that he made this season. I think if he had a coordinator, not Eric Bieniemy, but a coordinator that really knows how to, I'll say, have him really work with his receivers. I mean, really have a guy he can lock in on besides McLaurin. I think the thing with Sam Howell, it's not so much Sam Howell. It's just that they put him they put him up more than he should have. I mean, they put him on display more, or put him in a position of having to win games for him than they should have. What you were just saying about the ground game, they didn't give something to take the pressure off of him. They didn't give him enough there. And again, you and I, we love, ground and pound, ground and pound. They didn't do it. They put it in, they put the ball in his hands more, and he had moments, but there are also moments he held the ball too daggone long, and we know what happened with that. I just want somebody in there that can really, if you're going to bring in a defensive coach, you daggone sure better bring in an offensive coordinator who's going to work with him and work with the running backs, work with that offensive line, and really try to put some juice in there, be a little bit more balanced, if nothing else, and kind of show the potential that they had early in the season.
Yeah, and you say a couple things. You use the word encouraged. That's how I feel about Dan Quinn. I'm encouraged. I really feel good about him. The same way you felt encouraged about Joe Gibbs in '81. You also bring up another interesting thing that people are just making a foregone conclusion. Sam Howell's out of here. I think Quinn and his staff are really going to take a look at him and see what they can do, because here's the thing. You have a couple quarterbacks out there. You got Jaden Davis, you have Caleb Williams, you have Drake May. All three of them come into the league as rookies, and you're starting off as a rookie. If there is a possibility that they can see that Howe may be a little bit further ahead and can progress within the offense that the Commanders will now have, you're not starting all over again. You're not. You're progressing to, this will be Sam Howell's third year. So, you take a look at
it. Starter, primarily as a starter.
Yeah. And you see what you got. I'm not taking anything away from Caleb Williams. I'm not taking anything away from Jalen Davis or
Jaden Daniels.
I'm sorry, Jaden Daniels. I'm not taking anything away from. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah. I know you're thinking about Jermaine Davis.
Yeah, I'm doing really good on these names today. But I just think you got to look at the whole piece of the puzzle and see if this is, maybe you keep him, maybe you don't. I don't know. You need to look at it and make a decision. But all in all, I really like Dan Quinn coming to the Washington Commanders. I really like it. They have a setup now with the general manager, Adam Peters, with the head coach. I just think they're on the right path.
I really hope so for the hometown team. Me being a recovering, reformed Washington Redskins fan, who became who's very disenchanted with the franchise, because they haven't even been treading water. I mean, it's like they gasp for air, go back under a little bit, and they're always fighting to get to the surface. And it's been what, 30 years, John, since the Super Bowl win. It's been what, 20 something years since they really, probably 20 years since they've had a really deep run in the playoffs. Enough is enough. I don't expect instant results from Dan Quinn. I hope he can. I hope he can really do it, having been a head coach. I had the same feeling when they brought on Ron Rivera, because his thing was about discipline. Discipline, defense, and he hires Jack Del Rio, and this season, or this past season, they were giving up an average of 35 points a game. And that's not progress. And Jack Del Rio, I thought, was a competent coordinator at one point. I don't know what happened, but Gary, I think you just want to see some enthusiasm, and I just don't feel it right now. I'm going to keep an open mind, but I just don't feel it right now.
And in my opinion, you bring up Ron Rivera. I think Ron Rivera came here in a very difficult situation. It was the beginning of the end for the Washington organization. Snyder was beginning to face more and more lawsuits, more and more backlash, and everything else. And when Rivera came here, he came here not only as a coach, but basically came here in charge of football operations. So, and then also throwing the fact the man was fighting cancer one season when he was here. You know, he had to deal with that. On top of the fact he dealt with a pandemic. So he really didn't have, in my opinion, just straight football. Now, even if he did, I don't put him in the same category as Dan Quinn. I think Ron Rivera is a solid coach, but I do not think he's Dan Quinn. But what I will say is Ron Rivera had a lot on his plate. And I think now that that plate has been emptied, he realizes it, and he's even made statements like, I was doing more than just football. And he was. But you asked for that. You didn't ask for everything. Let me be clear. Some of the stuff that happened to you physically, you didn't ask for that. And that was unfortunate. I'm glad that he made it through.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the other stuff he had to deal with, cleaning up the organization and some of the conflicts and controversy that went on, he was doing more than just football.
Yeah. As far as the pandemic, every coach had to deal with that, but you're right in that he had added distractions, and that's really what they were, between the ownership, his own health situation. And I hate to use that term. I can't think of, I'll say responsibilities. Being in charge, being responsible for his health. Yeah, but I think those kind of things did kind of distract from maybe the big picture.
Yeah.
They gave him too much power. And I don't know if that works in today's NFL. I do think that, the successful teams, you look at San Francisco, with John Lynch kind of, putting the rosters together and really consulting his coach in terms of this is what we need, this is who we need, and he goes out and gets the guys. And I think I am encouraged that they do have a general manager, which is something, again, Ron Rivera had too much to worry about being a coach. He couldn't be director of player personnel. He couldn't be general manager. It's like sometimes the best teams hire people to find the players that help the coach succeed, i.e. Bobby Beathard. I don't think this whole thing where everybody has control like Belichick did. I mean, yeah, it worked when you have Tom Brady, and I'm not going to say he won just because of Tom Brady, because the way he brought in all of these no names to be his receivers and win Super Bowls with guys who are 5'8" and catching passes across the middle. I mean, again, it's like I do think that speaks to the quality of Bill Belichick as a coach. I don't know how that would have worked in Washington. I think it probably would have been a good hire from a PR standpoint because he has Maryland ties, and he is, after all, probably arguably the greatest coach in NFL history. And I think that would have kind of juiced up enthusiasm. I'm just waiting for Dan Quinn to really show it with this team on the field. And again, I'm going to keep an open mind on it.
We're going to see, Gary. We're going to see.
All right, let's look ahead to the Super Bowl, John. We're in that week between. We've already voiced our feelings about the Pro Bowl games, such as they are. But let's look ahead to the big game: San Francisco versus Kansas City. Kansas City has gotten there, obviously, because of Patrick Mahomes, but they've gotten there because of a defense that basically shut down two teams on their home field and has put them in a situation where, they can be the first repeat champion since the New England Patriots, and I want to say it was 04, 05. Am I correct?
Somewhere around there. Around there. Is it
Yeah.
03, 04, 04, 05, one or the other?
Yeah. And as a Lamar Jackson fan, I'm still kind of licking my wounds over that game. We'll get into that in a few, but I'm at a point now with Kansas City that my goodness, I think win or lose, they've established a dynasty. I think they have established themselves as the team to beat year in and year out, as long as it's like say Andy Reid and Mahomes staying together. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I don't see anybody toppling the king right now except for the San Francisco 49ers, which is why I like the Super Bowl. It's a rematch from 2, 3 years ago. Um, it's like Brock Purdy against Patrick Mahomes, which on the one hand you would say Mr. Irrelevant versus, the face of the NFL. Well, one time Mr. Irrelevant, but dude comes in with a great performance, and San Francisco is still a very, very dangerous team offensively. I think that they can match pace and scoring with Kansas City. In fact, I think they have the edge there. But again, it's going up against that Kansas City defense that's the challenge. I'll just say it right now. I'm leaning toward the Chiefs. I'm picking the Chiefs because you got to beat the best to be the best. But it wouldn't shock me if San Francisco was the winner. What say you?
Going to be a good game.
We hope.
Interesting stat that I read last week. Repeat games in the Super Bowl, the team that won the first game has won all the rematches. So that's an interesting stat. I really want San Francisco to play well and maybe win, but my head tells me Kansas City is going to find a way and going to get it done. Now, we'll hopefully have another show before the Super Bowl, and let's see if I stick to that or if I change it. But right now, I'm saying Kansas City.
Yeah, we will have another show, John. I mean, I hope we do because, I mean, while I've already made my Super Bowl pick, we can break down the game and why we think Kansas City is going to win it. We can talk about Deebo Samuel and everybody next week, but at first glance, I was more impressed with Kansas City in the playoffs and going in there because the question was, could they win on the road? Okay, yes, they won in Buffalo. Then they come to Baltimore and basically take the Ravens' heart out on their first 2 drives, or I'll say, the first 3 drives. One of them was was a chip shot because of a fumble, and but again, it's like that first drive really set the tone for the game. It was kind of an uh-oh moment for the Ravens as Green Bay driving downfield on the Dallas Cowboys was an uh-oh moment down there. And, well, Baltimore had probably one of the worst offensive game plans any team could have for that situation. Yes, I know Lamar Jackson threw an end zone interception. He didn't look good at times, but I'm not putting this all on him. Again, that's something for the next few minutes. But in terms of Kansas City, and that's the way I'm looking at it, is that Kansas City basically came in, hit him in the mouth, and they just kind of like dodged and weaved from there, got the points that they needed, and won the game. And they won on the road, and that's important.
All true facts, Gary. They came in, they punched him in the mouth. As Mike Tyson used to say, everybody has a great plan on how to fight me until I punch him in the mouth. And then all those great plans and great strategies go right out the window. So,
I forgot about that line. We don't give Mike Tyson enough credit for being a philosopher.
Yeah. And the game plan for Baltimore, they didn't run the ball enough. You look at what Buffalo did to Kansas City the week before, they ran for 180 yards. I was really shocked to see Baltimore ran the ball like 15 or 17 times.
Yeah, I think yes, yeah, it was right in the middle, 16 times, and that's still a head scratcher to me.
I didn't get that. Also, I think there were times that Jackson did exactly what I used to complain about Dak Prescott doing. You're holding the ball and you're so committed and believing in staying in the pocket that you won't use your legs to run. And there were many times, I believe, in that game that Lamar Jackson could have taken off and got a few more first downs, a few more yards, and kept
Should
that
have.
clock
Yeah,
going
you're
and
right.
matriculating
Not could
down the
have,
field.
but should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I mean, yeah,
just don't.
think about that
I,
first touchdown pass. Sorry about that.
mhm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, but that first touchdown pass, look at what he did to extend the play. You know, he looks like he's about to be sacked. He eludes the tackle, rolls, then drops back, waits for his guy to get open, and then just throws a perfect bomb for the tying touchdown. To me, that was vintage Lamar Jackson, what he does in terms of extending plays. With the way that they covered his receivers, and I mean, they blanketed those guys. And again, that's where I give Kansas City credit. I've never seen a team consistently blanket receivers, sometimes in single coverage, but usually with somebody, just like in the vicinity to help out. That end zone interception he threw was, I mean, that was triple coverage. It was really double coverage that turned into triple coverage almost at the same time. And that's a great defense. That's something we didn't see from Kansas City, the last couple of years. But for Lamar Jackson, you're right. Let's just drop this whole idea about making him a pocket passer. Just let him do what in the heck he does best and extend plays and make plays happen with his feet and run the damn ball.
And I'll say this: I don't have problems with him being a pocket passer, just like I don't have problems with Dak Prescott. But don't become a pocket passer to the detriment of what you have as assets.
Mm-hmm.
And his ability to create plays and extend plays is what makes him Lamar. Another thing I would say, I think, cost Baltimore, they became a very undisciplined team. Right before halftime, they had two 15-yard personal foul penalties. That's what gave them the 3 points to make it 17-10 instead of 14-10. The big pass play they had to Zay Flowers. Went for 40 or 50 yards. They were inside the 5. He gets up and he taunts the defensive back. You lose 15 yards off that.
Yep.
It's just they were doing some things that just didn't seem Baltimore Ravenish. It just seemed like, and like I said, I think the first drive turned the tables on Baltimore. I think once they think about it, most teams in the NFL now, if they win the coin toss, they defer to the second half.
Mm-hmm.
That's what usually happens. So Kansas City wins the coin toss and then also says, we're going to take the ball now, and drives it right down the field, punches you in your mouth, and it changes the whole perception of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And give Kansas City credit. They did what they had to do. But I think Baltimore's a good team. I think they have a bright future. I don't sit here and criticize Lamar Jackson as if, some people want to, go really hard on him. That's not what I want to do. It was a rough game for all of them. That defense played very well in the second half. The offense as a whole, not Lamar Jackson, but the offense as a whole struggled. And they couldn't find the proper gear. Todd Monken struggled. Lamar Jackson struggled. Odell Beckham struggled. How do you not find Odell Beckham until the fourth quarter? I mean, the whole offense as a entire unit struggled.
Yeah. I think that's why when I was saying about licking my wounds is that, of course, I live just outside Louisville. The Ravens are on every week here in Louisville, radio and TV. I mean, this is a Ravens market because of Lamar. And I think that there was a whole region, if not a whole state, and yes, I'll just say, a whole state that was kind of rooting for him to succeed. And that's why I say it hurts for me. And I didn't, really the day after that game, I didn't listen to any of the commentary because I just knew it was going to be kind of that knee jerk. Well, he'll never win the big game. He's this, he's that. He'll never be this. And, I mean, just shut up already, folks. He's still young. I mean, I don't even think he's 25 years old yet, and there's still time. I still think that window is open. But Todd Monken did not do his team or Lamar Jackson any favors with that game plan. They got away from everything that had worked up until then. And reason why they got away from it is because Kansas City came, shoved it down their throats, kind of forced them maybe into a little bit of a panic. I mean, even on that first scoring drive, that there was a lot of panic, or their first touchdown drive, there was a lot of panic in that. There wasn't much composure. And again, he improvised and made something happen. They should have settled into a pattern that worked for him, running the ball, having Jackson, do his check downs, sometimes run, but they panicked. They created a sense of urgency, the Chiefs, in the Ravens that they weren't used to all season, and they are not a good play from behind team,
Agreed.
as we saw.
Agreed.
So and again, that's the thing about Kansas City. They're good at taking teams out of their comfort zone and mindset and game plan and trying to make them match wits with them. It's a mind game with Kansas City. Do I think this Kansas City team is as strong as maybe that first Super Bowl team? No. I mean, that team I thought was pretty much perfect, for them. The last two, well, last year's team I thought was pretty good, but I think last year, we saw Patrick Mahomes as really that guy, that take charge guy in the Tom Brady, Joe Montana vein, where, it's like he's going to make something happen. Lamar Jackson was put in a situation where he felt like he had to be the hero, and he's not ready for that yet.
Yeah. Give it more time. I don't say break up the group yet. Keep them all together, bring them back, and try to make another run.
Yep. Get some complementary pieces. Listen to Ozzie Newsome and his advice as an advisor or whatever capacity he's in right now. And, again, give him the pieces, give the defense pieces that they need to succeed. But over in the NFC, John, now let's look at the 49ers. I don't know whether to say that they won that game or Detroit lost that game, because honestly, I'm still, it's just like, yeah, I'm impressed with the 49ers winning, but I still feel like I can't help but feel like Detroit gave that game away to them. I mean, they really did. And I'm going to ask you before we even talk about it, what is your feeling about kicking field goals, fourth down in that situation? Dan Quinn passed on at least two opportunities, I feel like, to put points on the board, with a field goal that could have, stretched it out, just kept the momentum going. And, he decided to play cowboy gunslinger and, go for it or whatever, and came up short both times. I forgot what they were on fourth down. I want to say they were only maybe 1 for 4 or something like that.
1 for 4. Dan Campbell, he pretty much continued being who he was the whole season. He had been going for it on fourth down. Would I have kicked the field goal? Yes, but I'll say for me, yes, I would have kicked the field goal. But also, what sticks out in my mind in the second half are the 4 or 5 drop passes by open receivers that could have kept drives going on. Even on one of those fourth downs, the receiver dropped the ball. So, and there's always something to be said about a balance between being who you are and getting away from who you are. I mean, for a second, we look at Lamar Jackson being who he is the whole season, or trying to get away from that and going back to who he used to be. And this is what Dan Campbell's been a gambler the whole season, going for it. You and I probably will kick field goals, Gary, without a doubt. But those drop passes hurt, and that defense could not hold San Francisco in the second half. It was basically 2 completely different games. In the first half, San Francisco's defense couldn't stop Detroit. Detroit had consecutive 3rd and 12, 3rd and 18, and they converted both of them. Are you kidding me? 3rd and 12 and 3rd and 18, and they converted both of them. And I'm not talking about convert them where you got to bring the sticks out to measure. I mean, convert them and they had room to spare.
Yeah.
I mean, they were running for open ground, open territory all through the secondary. It was crazy. And then give credit to Shanahan and San Francisco's brain trust. They made the adjustments in the second half and came back and did what they had to do.
Yeah. I was going to say this in closing because it's about time to wrap up this fine discussion. I think for San Francisco this week, they've got to do some soul searching about who they are, what their personality is, because I don't think all season that they've really established who they are or what they are. And I think it's a potentially explosive team that is conservative way too many times when they could be, really just blowing up. They could have blown up the NFC and just not made this even an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But we look at some of the head scratching losses that they had, and they almost had one in the NFC Championship game before the light bulb came on rather. They can't do that against Kansas City, and they really have to look at themselves this week and just say, let's get back to who we are. First, let's figure out who we are, what we are, and then, take it to Las Vegas and show the Kansas City Chiefs that we ain't the same team that they faced 3 years ago.
We'll see what's going to happen, Gary. Right now, I'm sticking with Kansas City. I think San Francisco's going to play them well. I think, I'm going to be rooting for San Francisco. At least that's what Kim tells me, that we're rooting for San Francisco. But for the show, I gotta pick a team. I'm going to say I think it's going to be Kansas City, and then we go from there.
No sound, just visual. Anyway, you're right. In the meantime, folks, let's watch some sports. There's plenty of college basketball. We've got NHL All-Star game coming up this weekend. We've got women's college basketball, which is becoming very, very interesting. We can probably talk about that next week because I really think we're looking at another championship team from South Carolina, but we can delve into that next week. John, I can't wait for it. Take us home, man.
Man, another great week talking about sports, man. I've enjoyed it. You all watch some football, watch some basketball, watch some sports, and come back and see us real soon. See ya.